What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about here on a daily basis. In this episode, could there be a term limit for the Supreme Court? Well, a bill was just introduced here in Congress. Do you think there should be? Because right now, when Supreme Court justices are nominated, they basically serve until they die or until they retire, which is sometimes 40 years, 30 years, 50 years. Yeah, let me know your thoughts here. This is a long time. And it's kind of the same thing with Congress here. At least with Congress, they are re-elected, or they at least go up for re-election. Congress members go up for re-election every 2 years in the House of Representatives and every 6 years in the Senate. Okay, so at least they have to get voted on by the people. Okay, so we'll talk about that here in a moment. And Democratic Senator Joe Manchin says he has reached a deal with the Democrats over the next package with the Democrats, and we'll give you the details here on that. So let's jump right in. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, make sure to click the subscribe button down below so you don't miss out on new videos. Here we go. Yeah, also, President Biden is going to stop isolating already after testing negative twice for the virus now. Yeah, President Biden has tested negative twice here for the virus and will stop isolating here yesterday. His physician, Kevin O'Connor, said in a memo. He has tested negative for the virus on Tuesday evening and yesterday on a rapid antigen test after completing a 5-day course of the antiviral treatment Paxlovid. The physician said, quote, his symptoms have been steadily improving and are almost completely resolved. Given these reassuring factors, the president will discontinue his strict isolation measures.
Over the past 18 months, my administration has left no stone unturned in our fight against this pandemic. None. We brought down deaths by nearly 90% since I took office because of the help of all the people in this Rose Garden. Business and schools responded. Grandparents are hugging their grandkids again. Weddings, birthdays, celebrations are happening in person again. So let's keep emerging from one of the darkest moments in our history with hope and light for what can come. Get vaccinated if you haven't gotten already. And now, get boosted. Order your free test. And if you get sick and test positive, seek treatment. Take advantage of these life-saving tools. We have more of these tools than we ever had before.
Biden did write that he plans to wear a face mask for 10 days, quote, anytime he is around others. Going forward here for according to the CDC guidelines for patients who stop isolating after 5 days. The Democrats have introduced a bill to enact term limits for the Supreme Court justices. Yeah, here's the details on this. A group of House Democrats introduced a bill to enact term limits to the Supreme Court justices, or for the Supreme Court justices, arguing that the move will, quote, restore legitimacy and independence to the nation's highest court. The legislation titled the Supreme Court Tenure, Establishment and Retirement Modernization Act would authorize the president to nominate Supreme Court justices every 2 years in the first and third years after a presidential election. That's interesting. The justices who have been on the court the longest will be moved to the senior status first. Wow, it's really interesting. So it would authorize the president to nominate Supreme Court justices every 2 years in the first and third years after a presidential election. So no more nominating a Supreme Court justice, 2 months before an election. The justices who have been on the court the longest will be moved to senior status first. If confirmed by the Senate, those individuals would serve a maximum of 18 years on the bench on the Supreme Court. After their tenures are complete, the Supreme Court justices would retire from active service and assume senior status. Justices on the bench at the time of the bill's enactment would switch to senior status one by one as justices are confirmed to the bench in the first and third years after a presidential election. Under senior status, justices will still hold their office on the Supreme Court, which includes official duties and pay. If the number of justices dips below 9 at some point because of a vacancy, disability, or disqualification, the justice who most recently attained senior status would serve as the 9th associate justice. So kind of as a reserve justice. That's interesting. That's interesting. Not a bad policy. Representative Hank Johnson introduced the bill with Jerry Nadler and a bunch of these different representatives here, as you can see here. In a statement, they said the bench is increasingly facing a legitimacy crisis. 5 of these 6 conservative justices on the bench were appointed by presidents who lost the popular vote. And they are now racing to impose their out-of-touch agenda on the American people who do not want it. This is a quote here. He said, referring to justices nominated by former presidents Trump and George W. Bush. Term limits are a necessary step toward restoring balance to this radical, unrestrained majority on the court. Introduction of this bill comes more than a month after the Supreme Court issued a ruling overturning Roe v. Wade, the 1973 landmark case that deemed the right to abortion unconstitutional or constitutional. According to multiple different polls, you can see here, they're all pretty close here. 59% of Americans disapprove of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. When it comes to women, 67% disapprove of the Supreme Court's decision. 52% call the court's decision a step backward. Only 31% say it's a step forward. 17% say neither. Another poll, according to Monmouth University, 60% disapprove of overturning Roe v. Wade. Only 37% approve. The other people, didn't have an opinion or something like that. More than 8 in 10 Americans describe their view of the court as being a strongly held opinion. You can also see here, this is where it gets really big there. Only 1 in 10 people, so 10%, back the no exceptions ban and prosecuting out-of-state abortions. This particularly the no exceptions ban, so meaning for rapes and things like that. So, that story about the 10-year-old girl who was raped, and now they've arrested the guy who did it. Only 1 in 10 people back that. A lot of states have no exceptions bans. And Ohio's one of those states there. They literally wouldn't let her get an abortion for that. Only 1 in 10 people back that. But a lot of states have those anyways. So, yeah. Yeah, so the question here is, do you think the Supreme Court should have a... And remember, Roe v. Wade is really just the latest thing to come up here. We also have the gun issues. They're overturning the New York passed a gun safety law for what New York thought was right, and the Supreme Court overturned it. So the thing here right now is that the Supreme Court, don't look at it as a Republican versus Democrat issue. Think about it more like this, because remember, the Supreme Court changes periodically. Okay. The problem with the Supreme Court is that they get nominated and then they serve there for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And remember that a president appoints them and then the Senate confirms them. Okay. The people, you and I, don't get to vote on them at all. That's the real big issue. So, like, people from the House and the Senate and the presidency, people actually get to vote on them. The Supreme Court justices, we don't get to vote on them at all. So, I personally think that having an 18-year term limit for a Supreme Court justice is totally fair. You think about presidents, they have 4 to 8-year terms. That is way less than an 18-year term for a Supreme Court justice. So it's not really a Republican Democrat issue because that's constantly changing, at least every so often, right? I mean, eventually it changes Republican Democrat. We just had, one or two die off here, one retired. So they do change. But the problem is that how long they serve. Do you think they should be able to serve 30, 40, 50 years? That's kind of the problem with that. And the other problem is they're not even elected by the people. They're elected by a president and then confirmed by the Supreme Court or by the Senate. Yeah. Yeah. So you can let me know your thoughts here in the comments, and I'll keep you up to date here. Yeah. So with Congress here, Congress, you look at the House of Representatives, they're actually reelected every 2 years. Okay. So you look at people like Nancy Pelosi, she actually does get voted on every 2 years. Okay. And you look at people like Mitch McConnell, they've both been in Congress forever. Mitch McConnell gets voted on every 6 years, whether he will run again after if he comes up again. They've both been in Congress forever. I get people, they're both unpopular by some people. Some people, you love them or you hate them, right? Republican, Democrat, they're from both two different parties. But at least they get voted on. At least they get voted on. Okay. But they're voted on. That's the thing about it here. House of Representatives, especially, every 2 years they're up for re-election. That's pretty big. Senators serve 6 years. People like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, who have been and really Ron Johnson, he's up for re-election here. Remember him? He blocked the stimulus check from the past. Where's he from? Wisconsin? Yeah, he's a senator from Wisconsin. I think he's up for re-election too. He's one of the guys that is he's very his seat's very in jeopardy. So yeah, so there's and I think Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Joe Manchin seems to be popular in West Virginia, but I have a feeling that his popularity might be waning. Kyrsten Sinema, she's not very popular in Arizona at all. Let me know if you're from Arizona, what you think. Let me know if you're from West Virginia, what you think of Joe Manchin. Let me know if you're from Wisconsin, what you think of Ron Johnson. But at least these guys are voted on. The Supreme Court, you don't get a say. You literally don't get a say at all. That's the problem here. If you want to vote them out, how do you vote them out? You can't. Now they could be impeached, but it's very difficult to do. It's actually never happened. There has been a Supreme Court justice impeached like way back in the 1800s. They were impeached in the House, but then it went to the Senate and it wasn't totally finished. It wasn't totally confirmed. Similar to how like Bill Clinton and former President Donald Trump, like they were impeached in the House, but then it went to the Senate and it didn't have enough votes to pass in the Senate. So you can be impeached in the House, but then it's got to finish in the Senate with the 2/3 vote. Same thing with the Supreme Court justice. So a Supreme Court justice can be impeached, but it's very difficult. It's never happened. So yeah, I think it should happen. And again, it's not because of a Republican or a Democrat thing. I just don't think a Supreme Court justice should serve for 50 years. It's too much power for too long of a time, especially because they can't be voted on. It would be like a president serving for 50 years without being voted on. Imagine if we had any single president for 50 years and they couldn't even be voted on. It'd be like Putin being president for 50 years. Oh wait, that could happen. Or the China president, happened to be president for 50 years. Oh wait, never mind. But let me know your thoughts here in the comments, and I'll keep you up to date here on a daily basis. I know you can't make this stuff up, guys, but we do need kind of, this is the kind of things that remember, there used to not really be these kind of limits on the presidency back in the day, and they eventually changed them. So yeah, well, I mean, they changed them a little bit, but I'll keep up to date here on everything with going on here in our country. Make sure to subscribe down below to our YouTube channel. It's completely free to do so. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can click here to watch my newest video next. Or you can click here to see the new announcement that was just announced here. Really big announcement that just came out here. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.